Hello, this is Annalisa from England, and this is her mother's voice, my mother's voice. Today I've got a book which is 1725. It's called Rules That Concern All Servants in General. It's a really bad condition book. It's got no front cover, it's got no back cover. In fact, there's some sort of leftover picture sort of, I don't know if it's drawn on there or if it was printed on there and on a page after it, and it's just left an imprint. It's got burns. It's really burned in some places. This is a book that nobody wanted, nobody loved, and I got it for cheap. But it's still a really good book. It's a book that tells about it's a message to servants everywhere to basically be a bit, don't take any rubbish from your master and mistress, but be a bit savvy about how you deal with them. And it's quite amusing because some of the instructions are not what you would expect to tell a servant. But while I'm reading it, there's gonna be places where I pause for long bits trying to work out what it says, because some of the language is some of the letters are old style, and you have to kind of translate it into the what looks like F's into S's, and what looks like XT. It's just written differently. But also there's lots of creases in the book, and I don't know, you can't hardly read what's on the creases that are along there. But I'll do my best to try and be fluent in it. It's fun, and you'll get a taste for what it was like back in the early 1700s to be a servant in a big house. I'm going to go straight into it. Just the prologue for this time. Rules that concern all servants in general. When your master or lady calls a servant by name, if that servant be not in the way, none of you are to answer, for then there will be no end of your drudgery, and masters themselves allow that if a servant comes when he is called, it is sufficient. When you have done a fault, be always pert and insolent, and behave yourself as if you were the injured person. This will immediately put your master or lady off their mettle. If you see your master wronged by any of your fellow servants, be sure to conceal it, for fear of being called a telltale. However, there is one exception in the case of a favourite servant who is justly hated by the whole family, who therefore are bound in prudence to lay all the faults they can upon the favourite. The cook, the butler, the groom, the market man, and every other servant who is concerned in the expense of the family should act as if his master's whole estate ought to be applied to that servant's particular business. For instance, if the cook computes his master's estate to be £1,000 a year, he reasonably concludes that £1,000 a year will afford meat enough, and therefore he need not be sparing. The butler makes the same judgment, so may the groom and the coachman. And thus every branch of expense will be filled to your master's honour. When you are chid before company, which with submission to masters and ladies is an unmannerly practice, it often happens that some stranger will have the good nature to drop a word in your excuse. In such a case you will have good title to justify yourself, and may rightly conclude that whenever he chides you after on other occasions, he may be in the wrong, in which opinion you will be better confirmed by stating the case to your fellow servants in your own way, who will certainly decide in your favour. Therefore, as I have said before, whenever you are chidden, complain as if you were injured. It often happens it often happens that servants sent on messages are apt to stay out somewhat longer than the message requires, perhaps 2, 4, 6 or 8 hours, or some such trifle. For the temptation, to be sure, was great, and flesh and blood cannot always resist. When you return, the master storms, the lady scolds. Stripping, cudgelling, and turning off is the word. But here you ought to be provided with a set of excuses, enough to serve on all occasions. For instance, your uncle came 80 miles to town this morning on purpose to see you, and goes back by break of day tomorrow. A brother servant that borrowed money off you when he was out of place was running away to Ireland. You were taking leave of an old fellow servant who was shipping for Barbados. Your father sent a cow to you to sell, and you could not get a chapman till 9 at night. You were taking leave of a dear cousin who is to be hanged next Saturday. You wrenched your foot against a stone and were forced to stay 3 hours in a shop before you could stir a step. Some nastiness was thrown on you out of a garret window, and you were ashamed to come home before you were cleaned. And the smell went off. You were pressed for sea service and carried off before a justice of peace who kept you 3 hours before he examined you, and you got off with much ado. A bailiff by mistake seized you for a debtor and kept you the whole evening in a sponging house. You were told your master had gone to a tavern and come to some mischance, and your grief was so great that you inquired for his honour in 100 taverns between Pall Mall and Temple Bar. Take all tradesmen's parts against your master, and when you are sent to buy anything, never offer to cheapen it, but generously pay the full demand. This is highly to your master's honour, and may be some shillings in your pockets, and you are to consider if your master hath paid too much. He can better afford the loss than a poor tradesman. Never submit to stir a finger in any business but that for which you were particularly hired. For example, if the groom be drunk or absent, and the butler be ordered to shut the stable door, the answer is ready. And, please your honour, I don't understand horses. If a corner of the hanging wants a fingernail to fasten it, and the footman be directed to tack it up, he may say he doth not understand that sort of work, but his honour may send for the upholsterer. Masters and ladies are unusually quarrelling with the servants for not shutting the doors after them, but neither masters nor ladies consider that those doors must be opened before they can be shut, and that labour is to double to open the doors and shut the doors. Therefore, the best and the surest and easiest way is to do neither. But if you are so often teased to shut the door that you cannot easily forget it, then give the door such a clap as you go out, it will shake the whole room and make everything in it rattle. To put your masters and ladies in mind that you observe their directions. If you find yourself to grow upon favour with your master or lady, take some opportunity in a very mild way to give them warning, and when they ask the reason and seem loath to part with you, answer that you would rather live with them than anybody else, but a poor servant is not to be blamed if he strives to be better himself, that service is no inheritance, that your work is great and your wages very small. Upon which, if your master has any generosity, he will add 5 or 10 shillings a quarter rather than let you go. But if you are balked and have no mind to go off, get some fellow servant to tell your master that he hath prevailed upon you to stay. Whatever good bits you can pilfer in the day, save them to junket with your fellow servants at night, and take in the butler, providing he will give you drink. Write your own name and your sweetheart's with the smoke of a candle on the roof of the kitchen or the servants' hall to show your learning. If you are a young sightly fellow, Whenever you whisper your mistress at the table, run your nose right in her cheek, or if your breath be good, breathe full in her face. This I have known to have a good consequences in some families. Never come till you have been called 3 or 4 times, for none but dogs will come at the first whistle, and when the master calls, "Who's there?" no servant is bound to come, for "who's there" is nobody's name. When you have broken all your earthen drinking vessels below stairs, which is usually done in a week, the copper pot will do as well. It can boil milk, heat porridge, hold small beer, or in a case of necessity serve for a Jordan. Therefore apply it indifferently to all of these uses. But never wash or scour it for fear of taking off the tin. Although you're allowed knives for the servants' hall at meals, yet you ought to spare them and make use of only your master's. Let it be a constant rule that no chair, stool, or table in the servants' hall or the kitchen shall have above 3 legs, which hath been the ancient and constant practice in all the families I ever knew, and is said to be founded upon 2 reasons. First, to show that servants are ever in tottering condition. Secondly, it was thought a point of humility that the servants' chairs and tables should have at least 1 leg less than those of their masters. I grant there hath been exception to this rule with regard to the cook, who by old custom was allowed an easy chair to sleep in after dinner, and yet I have seldom seen them with above 3 legs. Now this epidemical I can't quite read that word, laments of servants' chairs is by philosophers imputed to 2 causes, which are observed to make the greatest revolutions in states and empires, I mean love and war. A stall, a chair, or a table is the first weapon to take up in general romping or skirmish, and after a peace, the chairs, if they are not very strong, are apt to suffer in the conduct of an amour, the cook being usually fat and heavy, and the butler a little in drink. I can never endure to see maid servants so ungenteel as to walk the streets with their petticoats pinned up. It is a foolish excuse to allege their petticoats will be dirty, when they have too easy a remedy as to walk 3 or 4 times down a clean pair of stairs after they come home. When you stop to tattle with some crony servant in the same street, leave your own street door open, that you may get in without knocking when you come back. Otherwise your mistress may know you are gone out, and you must be chidden. I do most earnestly exhort you all to unanimity and concord, but mistake me not. You may quarrel with each other as much as you please, only always bear in mind that you have a common enemy, which is your master and lady, and you have common cause to defend. Believe an old practitioner, whoever out of malice to a fellow servant carries a tale to his master shall be ruined by general confederacy against him. The general place of rendezvous for all the servants, both in winter and summer, is the kitchen. There the grand affairs of the family ought to be consulted, whether they concern the stable, the dairy, the pantry, the laundry, the cellar, the nursery, the dining room, or the ladies' chamber. There, as in your own proper element, you can laugh and squall and romp in full security. When any servant comes home drunk and cannot appear, you must all join in telling your master that he has gone to bed very sick, upon which your lady will be so good-natured as to order some comfortable thing for the poor man or maid. When your master and lady go abroad together to dinner or on a visit for the evening, you may leave only 1 servant in the house, unless you have a blackguard boy to answer at the door and attend the children if there are any. Who is to stay at home is to be determined by short and long cuts, and the stayer at home may be comforted by the visit from a sweetheart, without danger of being caught together. These opportunities must never be missed, because they come but sometimes, and all is safe enough while there is a servant in the house. When your master or lady comes home and wants a servant who happens to be abroad, your answer must be that he has but just that minute stepped out, being sent for by a cousin who was dying. If your master calls you by name and you happen to answer at the fourth call, you need not hurry yourself, and if you be chidden for staying, you may lawfully say that you come no sooner because you did not know that you were called for. When you are chidden for a fault, as you go out of the room and downstairs, mutter loud enough to be plainly heard. This will make him believe you are innocent. Whoever comes to visit your master or lady when they are abroad, never burthen them your memory with the person's name, for indeed you have too many other things to remember. Besides, it is a porter's business, and your master's fault he does not keep one, and who can remember names? And you will certainly mistake them, and you can neither write nor read. If it be possible, never tell a lie to your master or lady, unless you have some hopes that they cannot find out in less than half an hour. When a servant is turned off, all his faults must be told. Although most of them were never known by his master or lady, and all mischief done by others charged to him, instance them. And when they ask of any of you why you never acquainted them before, the answer is, Sir, or Madam, really I was afraid it would make you angry, and besides perhaps you think it was malice in me. Where are the little matters and misses of the house? They are usually great impediments to the diversions of the servants. The only remedy is to bribe them with goody-goodies, and they may not tell tales to papa and mamma. I advise you all you servants, whose matter lives in the country, and who expects vails, always to stand rank and file when a stranger is taking his leave, so that he must of necessity pass between you, and he must have more confidence or less money than usual if any of you let him escape. And according as he behaves himself, remember to treat him the next time he comes. If you are sent with ready money to buy anything at the shop and happen at time to be out of pocket, sink the money and take out the goods on your master's account. This is for the honour of your master and yourself, for he becomes a man of credit at your recommendation. When your lady sends for you up to her chamber to give you any orders, be sure to stand at the door and keep it open, fiddling with the lock all the while she is talking to you, and keep the button in your hand for fear you should forget to shut the door after you. If your master or lady happened once in their lives to accuse you wrongfully, you are a happy servant, for you have nothing more to do than for every fault you commit while you are in their service to be put them in mind of that false accusation, and protect yourself equally innocent in the present case. When you have mind to leave your master, and are too bashful to break the matter for fear of offending him, the best way is to grow rude and saucy of a sudden, and beyond your usual behaviour, till he finds it necessary to turn you off, and when you are gone, to revenge yourself, give him and his lady such a character to all your brother servants who are out of place that none will venture to offer their service. Some nice ladies who are afraid of catching cold, having observed that the maids and fellows below stairs often forget to shut the doors after them as they come in or go out into the backyards, have contrived that a pulley and a rope with a large piece of lead at the end should be so fixed as to make the door shut of itself, and require a strong hand to open it, which is an immediate toil to servants, whose business may force them to go in and out of 50 times in a morning. But ingenuity can do much, for prudent servants have found out an effectual remedy against this insupportable grievance by tying up the pulley in such a manner that the weight of the lead shall have no effect. However, as to my own part, I would rather choose to keep the door always open by laying a heavy stone at the bottom of it. The servants' candlesticks are generally broken, for nothing can last forever. But you may find... Sorry, this is on the crease. But you may find out many expedients. You may conveniently stick your candle in a bottle, or with a lump of butter against the wainscot, in a powder horn, or in an old shoe, or in a cleft stick, or in the barrel of a pistol, or upon an old its own grease on a table, in a coffee cup, or in a drinking glass, a horn can, a teapot, a twisted napkin, a mustard pot, an inkhorn, a marrow-bone, a piece of dough, or you may cut a hole in the loaf and stick it in there. When you invite the neighbouring servants to junket with you at home in the evening, teach them a peculiar way of tapping or scraping at the kitchen window, which you may hear, but not your master or lady, whom you must take care not to disturb or frighten at such unseasonable hours. Lay all faults upon a lapdog or a favourite cat, a monkey, a parrot, a child, or on the servant who is last laid off. By this rule you will excuse yourself, do no hurt to anybody else, and save your master or lady from the trouble and vexation of chiding. When you want proper instruments for any work you are about, use all expedients you can invent, rather than leave your work undone. For instance, if the poker be out of the way or broken, stir the fire with the tongs. If the tongs not be at hand, use the muzzle of the bellow, the wrong end of the fire shovel, the handle of the fire brush, the end of a mop, or your master's cane. If you want paper to singe foul, tear the first book you see about the house. Wipe your shoes for want of a clout with the bottom of a curtain or a damask napkin. Strip your livery lace for garters. If the butler wants a Jordan, he may use the great silver cup. There are several ways of putting out candles, and you ought to be instructed in them all. You may run the candle against the wainscot, which puts the snuff out immediately. You may lay it on the ground and tread the snuff out with your foot. You may hold it upside down until it's choked with its own grease, or cram it into the socket of a candlestick. You may whirl it around your hand till it goes out. When you go to bed, after you have made water, you may dip the candle end into the chamber pot. You may spit on your finger and thumb and pinch the snuff till it goes out. The cook may run the candle's nose into the meal tub, or the groom into a vessel of oats, or a lock of hay, or a heap of litter. The housemaid may put out her candle by running it against a looking-glass, which nothing cleans so well as a candle snuff. But the quickest and best of all methods is to blow it out with your breath, which leaves the candle clear and ready to be lighted. There is nothing so pernicious in a family as a telltale, against whom it must be the principal business of you all to unite. Whatever office he serves in, take all opportunities to spoil the business he is about, and to cross himself in everything. For instance, if the butler be a telltale, break his glasses whenever he leaves the pantry door open, or lock the cat or the mastiff in it, who will do as well. Mislay a fork or spoon, so he may never find it. If it be the cook, whenever she turns her back, throw a lump of soot or a handful of salt in the pot, or smoking coals into the dripping pan, or daub the roast meat with the back of the chimney, or hide the key of the jack. If a footman be suspected, let the cook daub the back of his new livery, or when he is going up with a dish of soup, let her follow him softly with a ladleful and dribble it all the way up the stairs to the dining room, and let the housemaid make such a noise that her lady may hear it. The waiting maid is very likely to be guilty of this fault, in hopes of ingratiating herself. In this case the laundress must be sure to tear her frocks in the washing, and yet wash them but half. And when she complains, tell all the house that she sweats so much that her flesh is so nasty that she fouls a smock more in 1 hour than the kitchen maid doth in a week. So that's the preface to this book. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter. As I say, it's the chapter, the directions to the butler, and if it's as good as any of that, you know, it's going to be good. Take care, and goodbye from me for now. Bye.